Hi, this is David Armstrong. I'm here today with another edition of our Musical Theater Factory vlog, and my very special guest today is Ken Alhadeff, one of the great friends and benefactors of the Fifth Avenue Theater and really all of Seattle. But what you may not know about Ken is that he and his lovely wife Marlene fell in love with a little show called Memphis that we premiered here at the Fifth Avenue Theater a few years ago, and became lead producers on that show, taking it all the way to Broadway, all the way to winning 4 Tony Awards, including Best Musical, all the way to a 3-year run on Broadway, and now a triumphant national tour that's going to come home on a victory lap back home to Seattle, and soon a London production. So I'm not sure I left you anything left to say, Ken.
And it was wonderful seeing all of you today. Thank you.
But I know Ken quite well. I'm sure he can come up with a couple of things. So tell us about when you first saw Memphis, the first time you heard the score, saw performers in a reading of it. Did you ever in a million years imagine you'd be here today with this history of 3 years later?
Absolutely not. But at one level, we were so naive, we didn't know that we couldn't. And when we were introduced to Memphis, it was even before the Fifth Avenue was associated at all. And that became an immediate dream to see if there was a fit. And under your vision and leadership, there was a fit, which makes it all the sweeter. But the piece immediately spoke to us. I mean, really spoke to us, to our heart, to our head, the value of the music, the value of the story. And it is not an understatement to say, I think our naivete was part of how Memphis happened, because we didn't understand some of the complexity of taking a show all the way to Broadway relative to stars and background as a TV show or a movie, and how much that happens nowadays.
Or the amount of money that needed to
be
raised.
And how much, we had no idea what the budget would end up being, which was significant. But the whole thing has been a thrill and a joy. And it is true that Memphis would have never been on Broadway without the Fifth Avenue Theater. Of all the shows the Fifth Avenue has helped ignite to the Broadway stage, I dare say there's none that can owe more to a theater than Memphis owes to the Fifth Avenue and you and Bernie and Bill, because it just wouldn't have happened, because we wouldn't have been in a position to be part of that happening without the Fifth Avenue.
So looking back, give us the 4 or 5 highlights that stick out in your mind of the journey of Memphis, moments you'll never forget.
The first big reading in New York, with 200 people sitting there, hearing it and seeing it, feeling it live for the first time. That's a moment I'll never forget. Probably of all the moments ever, though, that most people don't know about, was the moment we went to Memphis, the city, long before we were set in New York. And we did a presentation at the Orpheum Theater for some community people.
And the Orpheum Theater is the setting of the last scene of Memphis, is at the Orpheum Theater.
Yes. And there were about 80 people in the audience. And there was a row of absolutely beautifully dressed African-American ladies in their 60s and 70s. And you could kind of feel that they were observing what was happening, about these people from everywhere but Memphis coming to Memphis to tell Memphis about Memphis. They weren't being negative, but they were cautious and reserved in what are they doing. And I was standing to the side and I could see them. And Montego Glover stood up in this small room and sang Colored Woman. And in the middle of that song, which is so powerful about the life and the times of all women, and in particular black women in the 50s and the struggle to believe and be who they were, in the middle of the song, all 7 of these women stood up. And they raised their hands above their heads. And the tears were coming down. And in that moment, I knew we really did get it right. That we really had gotten it. Because nothing could have had that happen except the power of truth. And it was a moment that will never, ever leave my heart and soul.
probably kept you going through all the hard times of
was
making the
just
show
like
happen.
we cannot not succeed here. The next moment that I'll never forget is standing on the deck of our condominium in Lake Tahoe, getting the phone call from Sue Frost. And I'm sorry, I just get emotional thinking about it the way you asked the question. She said, "Kenny, we've got the Schubert Theater." And I can remember coming back
This
to
is the
Seattle.
Schubert Theater in New York, one of Broadway's prime theaters, probably the most sought-after theater in New York is the Schubert Theater.
And I remember coming back home and seeing you actually right out the front door of your offices here and saying, "We have our theater." I said, "It's the Schubert." And you said, "Which Schubert?"
Because they own a bunch of theaters in New York.
And I said, "The Schubert." And when you got so excited, because I was pretty naive about the theaters, you said, "You got the Schubert? That's a big deal."
Yeah.
That was a moment that was very special.
Talk about opening night at the Fifth Avenue.
And then bringing the show here. We were blessed to invite a lot of family and friends and people in Seattle we've been blessed to work with for decades in the issue of race and relationship and humanity and dignity.
Civil
and
rights.
To gather them all together, Black, white, Asian, Latino, Native American, a group of people that had been working on this together. And to be able to use the vehicle of this fabulous thing, musical theater, to showcase the struggle was just thrilling. And the audience response from second one, they got it, they felt it. And, it propelled us and motivated us. We didn't have a theater when we came to Seattle. We didn't have the rest of the money when we came to Seattle. And we instantly started inviting more investors. We invited all the theater owners. The Schuberts came out here. And it was Seattle that was the absolute launching pad for the future. And then, of course, opening night in New York was absolutely magical. And I think the other a magic moment that I had to experience almost secondarily because I had to get on a plane and come home to a grandchild's birthday, but was the matinee when almost completely unexpectedly, the First Lady of the United States chose to bring her children and her mother to the show. And in the report, you can see that she stands up with them near the end, first to stand up for applause with the tears. And that was very powerful. Then we were blessed to be invited to the White House and perform there and at the Ford Center as well. And then I guess the final night on Broadway is another one of those magic memories. It was
closing
explosive,
performance.
The final performance on Broadway. But I can't limit it to 5 because the opening night in Memphis was probably the most incredible theatrical moment I've experienced in my entire life in theater. And that
was the opening night of the touring production.
The touring production.
Broadway's still happening, and the tour opens in Memphis.
And Brian Fankart, who has performed the lead role of Huey over 200 times on Broadway, is singing Memphis Lives in Me. And when he gets to the end of the song, the crowd erupts in a roar. And I'm not exaggerating.
I've seen there's a video of it. It's pretty amazing.
It's about 3 minutes, and he tries to go back in, and they come up again. And the whole thing was almost 5 minutes, which is an eternity.
You hear about stopping a show. This is one of the few times you've seen the
show
literally stop.
They couldn't go on with the show because the audience, and it's a huge theater, was responding to the pride they felt about their city and to what they had seen. And the entire cast was in this moment. And then there's been 1,000 other experiences with this show. And I have to tell you honestly, as glorious as it is to be on Broadway and to have won Tony Awards and to have all the success this magnificent show has had, nothing is more compelling or exciting to us than being on the road and taking this story to 40, 50 American cities and in Canada, and sharing it across the nation and seeing the response of the public and the young people and the old people and the laughter and the dancing and the tears and what this show does inside a person.
How many people have seen Memphis now? Do you know?
Oh, well, on Broadway, it's over. It's 1 million plus.
Right.
And I don't have the exact numbers. But then you have to add that there's a DVD of it.
Right.
And you have to add that soon it will really establish itself within the canon of theater. And it is just inspiring to think that 7 or 8 years from now, a high school, Garfield High School, Franklin High School, could do Memphis and tell this story. And the kids can have a ball. They can dance, they can sing, there's funny parts. But under it all, they're going to be telling a story of the American journey. And to know that that's going to happen is thrilling. And to know that the Fifth Avenue is so intimately related to this and always will be is a joy. Quite honestly, I want to live long enough that the time will come that the Fifth Avenue will mount its own production of
Absolutely.
Memphis.
Oh, you'll be here.
And 15 years
Probably
from now,
10 or 15 years from now,
and we will produce Memphis.
Absolutely. I want to bring forward the Tony Award right here, the Tony Award for Best Musical for Memphis. And it's a thrilling thing to see and to hold in your hand. And it was thrilling for me to be there at Radio City Music Hall on stage with Kenny and Marlene and all the Memphis producers. And really, in a sort of triumphant way, a show that I think Broadway didn't expect to be the hit, didn't expect to run 3 years, and to now have this legacy. And as you talk about, this show's going to be performed probably 100 years from now. We'll all be gone, and people will still be doing Memphis.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of shows because of the body of what it's about in the American journey. And that's
what we all made together, including everybody in our audience and everybody who came to see it.
Because if you're watching this blog, that means you're connected to the energy of the Fifth Avenue and what it's about. It matters to you that you're taking the time to be part of this. We don't do anything that happens here without you. You're kind of like our life force. When you're in those seats, when you ask those questions, when you call, when you connect to the Fifth Avenue.
When you tell your friends.
Yeah, you bring the life to this theater. And so every achievement that David and his staff have had is partially your achievement, for sure.
Thank you, Kenny. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
We can't wait. If you didn't see Memphis the first time, I can't wait for you to see it because it's such an exciting show. And if you were with us the first time, I know you're eager to come back because it's just one of those shows. And you also get to see the changes in the show that came from the response that we had here at the Fifth Avenue.
What we say when you're going to see Memphis is put on your seatbelt and get out your Kleenex.
Exactly. Thanks so much. Great to have you. Bye.